Part 2. Nature wants ample space for each individual to keep up a standard of sanitation. Just fancy what would become of a large town like London or New York if there were not a torrent of water carrying away the discharge of several million inhabitants. If we see nature from a very elevated point of view, we will recognize that the whole system of life is an organization of food distribution. Just what this organization is for, we are not able and yet to explain. But we can observe that one species feeds on of the other, and each species feeds, grows, reproduces, and then vanishes from the surface, giving place to another generation. If nature's intention would have been only to create life, to populate the earth, there would not exist death, and consequently, no fight. As things are, there exist two opposing powers, apparently contradictory, which dispose of the organic matters, nature or birth, apostrophe, which is capable of developing a more or less highly organized individual from one original cell, and morture or death means which disposes of that organism after completion of its mission. What the origin of life and the object of death is, we can only guess. The mystery produced by both has created the sense for religion, the study of which constitutes the history of human mentality. The period of life of each organized individual is marked by constant fight, and success is recognized by the ability to do the fighting or the ability to avoid it. The humankind seeks peace and prosecution of the latter, but outside the human dwellings, the fight rages invariably. Willing or not, fighting is a factor in life, and nature only we humankind that have the ability to avoid it partially do forget the lower being must fight. To brand cockfighting as a cruel and barbaric sport is absurd when we know that the man kills millions of living things daily to appear his hunger. Cocking is nothing but an organized natural sport from which the onlooker derive moral profit, tempering nerves for the daily struggle, and learning how to carry on upright in the constant meal of life, as both combatants are equally matched and pull on to fight guided by nothing but their own desire to do so. It is perhaps the only sport where a decision conforms for the most perfect honesty. Cocks cannot be taught to make foul play or any sort, nor can they be helped to win if fatally destined to succumb. All that a man can interfere in the cock triumph is pitting him out to do his best in the several stages of production of gamecocks, and therefore to take the last objection of the subject. The cockers and breeders of gamefowl should learn the matter truly. He can then meet the criticism or any detractor with tranquil conscience and haughty. Very few breeders know the origin and anatomical seat of both gameness and fighting spirit. It has always been vaguely identified as a mental disposition, so that an investigation of the matter should prove at least interesting. The fighting spirit is present in almost every being normally bred. We find it in females. In our early years, we staged cricket fights and for the purpose we always keep some in convenient places. We also have some fighting lizards, spider, and guinea pigs. In some species, the fighting is done by the females. But generally speaking, it is always the male who fights. Two males meeting have the desire to fight. They go out on the warpath looking for trouble. Very seldom do males step to consider the probabilities of a triumph. A little bantam may offer the fight and eventually overwhelm a larger antagonist. Gameness induces the lesser one to stand the unequal test, and though it may feel distressed, take its death from his superior antagonist or actually conquers him. Nature sets a premium on gameness at any rate. Consequently, it is desirable quality. In the process of perpetuation of the species, we agree that in gamefowl, pugnacity and gameness have been developed artificially by selective breeding, and that its presence is liable to reduction by careless mating or managing breeding stock. Gameness disappear in the male or female by the removal of certain organs, which actually generate and perpetuate the state of mind. A capon does not show either pugnacity or gameness. A man has made is a regular feature of emasculating domestic animals, cattle, horses, sheep, etc. to maintain peace in the herds, removing the source of pugnacity, the sexual glands. These then are the organs that generate pugnacious inclination, evidence in the behavior of distinct sexes. The male is constantly or near so in breeding form. Any sexual temptation acting on nocturnal senses, eyes or nose, had an almost immediate retroaction upon the sexual glands. The sexual activity of females is bound to certain periods during which the sexual glands are stimulated by different agents. In the state of mind, they are inclined to jealousy, developing pugnacity towards other females in identical condition. It is well known that game hens are decidedly pugnacious towards the inmates of the same run during the laying period and fall upon each other at the slightest provocation. In this state of mind, they lay the eggs under the expression of fighting spirit, cocks running in the breeding yard, and extremely pugnacious, also and even jealous against their ordinary tender. If it happens to be a man, if the feeding and tending is done by a woman, they do not worry about her. It is the old rule sexual overcross attraction or repulsion, which can be witnessed in all sorts of animal. Hens that are cooped or confined without cocks assume the ordinary copulation position when a man enters and tries to pick her up. They do not behave so when a woman is the visitor. Okay. Part 3.